Hey guys, welcome back to Sci-Finatics. I'm Nick.
And I'm David, and we're here today to talk about the 60th anniversary Doctor Who special titled While Blue Yonder.
I enjoyed this episode. It was much more of a bottle show episode than our first week's episode, which had a much greater scope to it. This was a much smaller episode. The majority of it would have been shot on a green screen. We were inside the spaceship for the entire episode. So it was a much smaller, more intimate, I think, episode with, let's face it, the Doctor and Donna essentially in kind of an escape room kind of situation, at the edge of the galaxy on like an abandoned spaceship. This episode definitely had a much smaller, more intimate, more sort of, I guess, character-driven aspect to the episode. And obviously, it was just the Doctor and Donna for the entire episode, obviously including their alien metamorphosizing clones or whatever as part of the cast. But they were Doctor and Donna as well. So apart from these two, we didn't get any other characters in this whole episode. It was a very much smaller, more isolated story with these two.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. It was quite an insular episode. Also, we had the Doctor actually facing himself as a villain again. This has happened a couple of times before. The Patrick Troughton era with the 1967 story Enemy of the World, where he was playing against himself as Ramon Salamander. And also in 1980, where the Doctor was actually a walking cactus, all green and prickly, as Meglos. So with a smaller cast, it was interesting to see once again the actor play in the form of David Tennant, playing both the protagonist and the antagonist in this story.
So our episode kicks off in England in 1666. Nice countryside setting. And we very soon learn here we're, to our somewhat surprise, looking at Sir Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton is black. This is a bit of a surprise because obviously Isaac Newton wasn't black. Obviously having a diverse cast in science fiction is important, but I don't think we need to go and retcon history and take figures from our past that were a particular ethnicity and change their ethnicity just for the sake of being diverse. I think that is an unnecessary move. If you wanted to, introduce a new character or whatever, make them diverse, sure, do that. Do we really need, for the sake of inclusion and diversity, to take Isaac Newton, who clearly wasn't of African ethnicity, and change him to that ethnicity just to be politically correct? It pulls you out of the episode.
We've got this trend where we're trying to, tick boxes and promote inclusivity. And I'm all for that. I agree there. But I think when you're talking about an actual historical figure, you need to have, for the purpose of the credibility and believability, that actor reflect somehow the likeness of that person. And it was really obvious. It was very jarring. And it's cultural appropriation too, because it's actually teaching kids that Sir Isaac Newton was a person of colour, which he wasn't. I think it's also a little bit insulting to the actors as well that are playing this, because then they cop a lot of flack around this topic, which they shouldn't, because I think their performances are great. They do a good job. It just takes you out of that believability scope. All for inclusion, thumbs up, but let's not go into a place that doesn't make sense to go to.
If you want to include diversity, introduce new characters that tick that box. Don't crowbar it into historical figures that we know aren't that case, just for the sake of trying to be diverse.
It was also interesting too, in that the Fourth Doctor actually in the episode or the story, The Pirate Planet, mentioned that he had influenced Sir Isaac Newton by, I think, going up a tree, getting an apple and plonking it on his head. So it was kind of a little bit of a little bit of a play to that, with the TARDIS appearing in the tree with Doctor and Donna, obviously in a bit of trouble. I loved the repartee between the two of them about don't mention the word, don't mention the G word. And then it became the Mavity word,
Mavity.
M word.
I thought that was fun. I thought that was a fun reference, and the fact that Donna actually used that later in the episode to talk about gravity. She said Mavity instead, and then the Doctor just kind of gives her a quizzical look. I thought that was kind of fun. Next, we obviously find out that the TARDIS has crashed in an alien spaceship. They're out in the middle of space somewhere. The TARDIS is malfunctioned. It's pretty broken up, and it seems like the Doctor and Donna are going to be stranded on this spaceship for quite some time until the TARDIS can repair itself.
I was a little bit surprised to see that a simple cup of coffee being spelt over the TARDIS console cause such a dramatic impact to the TARDIS as it did. I mean, we had, all sorts of explosions. You had the red alert going, I guess, and the cloister bell going off, and then this stream of fire coming out of the open doors of the TARDIS as the Doctor and Donna were taking shelter. It was a complete madhouse. And then you had to see the TARDIS do a bit of repair time. Here we had the HADS, Hostile Action Displacement System, come up once again. It did actually occur a couple of times in the past. We had the Troughton episode, The Crotons, where we had the TARDIS move away from danger, and it's appeared a couple of times since. So it was good to see a bit of that being brought out from the past. Also, the sonic screwdriver got checked out of this episode. It was given a new function to help repair the TARDIS, or at least indicate when the kettle was boiling, I guess, if you could call it that. But we got an episode without the sonic screwdriver being waved around like we're in an episode of Harry Potter. I'm all for that.
Absolutely, David. I think the fact that the sonic screwdriver, almost in the last episode, I thought it was bordering on being overused to solve, every single problem. So the fact that it got taken away in this episode and they just had to solve their puzzle by using their wits and intelligence and everything, rather than using the get out of jail free card that is the sonic screwdriver, I think that was a really good move. It can, as you've said, kind of go down the road of being a little bit, whatever sticky situation we're in, we've got the sonic screwdriver, we can get out of any problem we need to. So the fact that was taken away, I think, added an extra level of danger and jeopardy to their predicament, I think.
And it gets back to creative problem solving, which I think is really a great skill set that the Doctor has, rather than the writers going down the easy path. I know we need to keep pace in these episodes nowadays, but you can still have the brain power as well as the pace going if you do it the right way.
Next, we see the Doctor and Donna venture a little bit more into the hallway of the ship, which is a pretty expansive ship. This is a giant spaceship looking at the length of the hallway here. And we get a little bit of reflection as to where they've just come from, visiting Sir Isaac Newton and so forth. And obviously here we get a little bit more of the soapboxing going on about the Doctor finding Isaac Newton hot, and commentary from Donna talking about the Doctor's sexuality. And again, it was unnecessary.
I guess recent iterations of Who have been more inclusive of the LGBTI community. I think that's great, but I think we also need to have it balanced. And I think it shouldn't also be driving the show. I think the stories and the characters should be driving the show, rather than pushing certain, I guess, agendas, if I could put it that way. We can make people feel inclusive without having that drum being banged. Also, we had Jodie Whittaker's Doctor explore a little bit of that with Yaz. There was a relationship there. And we've also, according to rumour, Ncuti Gatwa is going to be the first gay Doctor, from what has been foretold. So I guess making 14 in the same realm as this is probably getting a little bit too much. And I think where it works well is we've had characters like Captain Jack, really great character. He could be of a different persuasion without it being shoved in your face. And also, from memory, we had a Silurian madam who was also really good, and there was a gay relationship there. And I think that when it's done as part of the par for course, it works. We need to just focus on the stories, be inclusive as we can, but don't let the inclusion be driving the agenda of the show. I prefer them not to sexualize the Doctor. The Doctor, I think, is a character that goes across all spectrums, and let's leave that magic.
The Doctor's always been a somewhat asexual character, where he hasn't necessarily been male, female, one persuasion, another. He's just been neutral. So to start having him ogling at other genders and saying, he's hot or she's hot or whatever, I think somewhat takes you a little out of what the character historically has been.
It's definitely at odds with what we've seen in televised stories.
So next we see the Doctor and Donna jumping in what seems like a bit of a golf buggy, cruising down the hallway there. They meet this robot, which appears to be moving very slowly. Everything is sort of changing on the ship on a sort of a semi-regular basis. And there appears to be these voices that are speaking words in an alien language ever so often.
I also like the little Thunderbirds nod, where we had the Milady and the Parker between 14 and Donna as they get into the buggy cart. And I'll tell you what, that robot looked like a bit of a rusted bucket of bolts, didn't it? It didn't really sort of look like some technologically prowess piece of kit that would have belonged with the ship.
It almost reminded me of the robot that was in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the feature film version, which had a very sort of round bulbous head, and so it was like an older, rustier version of that. And we soon find out that there are no stars out the window. We're in a complete black void of space. We come to the conclusion that this spaceship that they're on is right on the very edge of the galaxy. Obviously, this ship has gone through a wormhole or something in the past, and they are nowhere near their galaxy. They are just completely in a uncharted void, which I think adds to a certain level of tension and fearfulness in this episode, thinking that they, can't just snap their fingers or steer the ship and fly back home. They're completely stuck in this area, which I think adds to the overall level of tension in this episode.
It kind of reminded me something out of like an Event Horizon type situation where you've got a ship in an unknown part of the universe and some mystery going on, and it was a large ass ship, that's for sure.
And next we see the Doctor and Donna enter what appears to be some sort of engine room where they're sort of opening drawers with, seems like almost like it was like a battery room with pulling out square plates dripping with some sort of liquid there, like they're sort of part of the, battery system that operates the ship. We've got the Doctor licking them and feigning he's about to pass out, which I thought was quite funny the way he sort of licked them and then pretended to sort of almost pass out and then say, "Oh no, just kidding." That was a bit of fun.
Why would you lick the friggin' some alien goo off some alien equipment? Seriously, we know 14's going to regenerate soon, but do we want that to happen right now in this episode? I think that's just crazy.
And this is where things started getting a little bit trippy, where we've got the Doctor and Donna in separate rooms working on different things. We've got Doctor in this room with all these pipes with water in them. And this is where they start talking to alter egos of each other, and you start thinking, hang on, what exactly is going on here? And obviously soon we learn that they aren't alone on this ship. There are other alien life forms on board, shape-shifting aliens that can assume the form of people they are conversing with, and we soon find out that their ability to replicate or to copy individuals, especially in the early stages, is a little bit not quite right, where we get these giant arms coming out of Doctor and Donna where they're saying, my arms are too long. You start realizing that not all is well here.
Yeah, it was quite trippy seeing this, but it was also quite trippy when they were getting into the dynamics with their respective doppelgangers, trying to work out what was reality and what wasn't, or who was who. And they were going into some deep field realm here, I guess you'd call it, in the backstories and trying to sort of like quiz them on, unique facts that each character had experienced. And, they're ticking boxes still, but still being doppelgangers. So they obviously had a very deep knowledge, deep understanding of the people that they were essentially copying.
When they actually realize that they aren't talking to each other and they're talking to some sort of alien shape-shifting clones of each other, where they have to sort of start throwing out questions, and it obviously becomes very difficult to work out who is who, because these shape-shifting alien clones have all of their memories. So it's very difficult to kind of test each other to work out, who are you, the real Doctor, or you're the real Donna, when the memories are all completely intact as well. It's like, how do you test that? And that becomes quite a conundrum.
It was very confusing. And I think the tie cutting moment sort of helped a little bit distill it for me, but some of the content that they were getting into was very deep. And there was a couple of points where certain lore from recent past was mentioned surrounding the Doctor's background. So we had the Timeless Child being mentioned in terms of the continuity before the William Hartnell Doctor. So that was kind of reinforced from the Chinball era. I think that was a very important moment there that was recognised in this new Doctor Who. And the second element was the destruction that occurred to the galaxy in the last season with the Flux. Both events had a huge impact on the Doctor and where Doctor number 14 is now. And also leads into topics like, well, why does he look like Doctor 10, just 15 years older? And this has not really been covered yet. I guess we might see maybe some answers to this in the next story. I thought there might have been an opportunity within this story, given that it's a very Dr. Donna-centric story, that we might get some answers to this, but still hasn't been answered yet. And it's kind of like the Doctor's a little bit in flux himself, where he's in between regenerations and he doesn't quite know why he's here, who he is, what he's about.
Next, we see the Doctor and Donna reunited after being separated for a period of time with their copies again and trying to work out who the hell is who. And we get this moment where the Doctor pulls a salt shaker out of his jacket pocket. Obviously, my knowledge of Doctor Who isn't as broad as yours is, David. But as far as I'm aware, the Doctor does not have a magical pocket in his waistcoat that miraculously materialises any item that he happens to want at a moment's notice. Like in last episode, he pulled a lawyer's wig out of his jacket pocket, and in this episode, he pulls a salt shaker out of his pocket. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he doesn't have some sort of magic. I know he has psychic paper and the sonic screwdriver and all that sort of stuff, but he doesn't have a magic replicator pocket in his jacket, does he?
Look, I'm going to go out on a limb and just speculate here. Maybe he's got like a bit of a TARDIS coat, yeah? So we all know the TARDIS is bigger on the inside than the out. Maybe the coat that he wears is transdimensional in some way, in that he can just put his hands in there into that baby and get whatever he wants out of it.
And next we pretty much find out the agenda of our shape-shifting clone aliens here, which is essentially to copy the Doctor and Donna down to the finest detail so that when the TARDIS returns, our aliens can pretend to be Doctor and Donna, steal the TARDIS and go and wreak havoc across the galaxy. And after obviously a lot of chasing down hallways make the Doctor and Donna fearful of these guys, they come to the conclusion that the more scared or fearful or more adrenaline they've got surging through the system, the quicker they're able to kind of make that metamorphosis happen and to complete that physiological change more quickly.
When you've got a villain that's like a mirror image of yourself where it's impossible to discern between who's good and who's bad, this is probably the ultimate horror in this, and I think it comes through very well in this episode.
And next, we get the pieces starting to fall in place a little bit more in terms of the history as to what has happened on this ship. We know that 3 years ago, the outside airlock was opened, which initially they assumed was the aliens coming onto the ship, but now we work out that basically that was the captain of the ship going outside the ship to get away from them so that they couldn't finish the copying process. And before she died, she managed to set a very, very slow self-destruct system on the ship, which is what these words have been playing out, and the reconfiguring of the ship every so often, a very slow countdown to zero for the ship to blow up. Now, it sort of struck me as, okay, she's got outside the ship, she set the self-destruct. I was a little bit vague on the whole principle as why this self-destruct needed to be so slow. The captain has escaped the ship to get away from the aliens, set the self-destruct to get outside on the hull. Why not just blow up the ship right then and there? Why did it need to be a countdown that lasted 3 years? Because obviously, if it was 3 years ago the hatch was opened, went outside the ship in the EV suit and everything, this countdown's obviously been going on for 3 years, and it's only just got to 10 as the Doctor and Donna have come on board. I didn't quite comprehend why it needed to be so slow. Towards the end here, we see a bit of a chase situation going on. We've got the Doctor and Donna and their doppelgangers running down the hallway here of the ship. Were they running towards the button to like stop the self-destruct or whatever? I mean, obviously halfway through their run here, the TARDIS miraculously appeared, but prior to that, they weren't running for the TARDIS. Were they running for the control panel with the robot to stop it? What was the gist on the run here?
So I think, yeah, it got a bit confusing, Nick, for me too. I think what they were trying to do there was the real Doctor and Donna were trying to delay the doppelganger Doctor and Donna from interfering with Jimbo the robot from hitting the self-destruct switch. But at the same time, they're having to balance that with the TARDIS, which, as we'll recall, was in that HADS mode, so it's staying away while there's danger. And it had to sort of pick them up after they'd delayed the doppelgangers long enough so that they didn't have a chance to interfere with Jimbo's button push and kablam after that, but gave them time to get into the TARDIS and escape the situation so that they can live to fight another day.
The Doctor has to make a very fast choice as to which Donna he is taking with him. And unfortunately, he makes the wrong choice. Obviously, at this point, the difference between the two Donnas are almost indistinguishable. And for a moment here, this is a really tense moment because he takes the wrong Donna, and we know that he's taken the wrong Donna. We've got the real Donna saying, no, Doctor, you've taken the wrong one. Oh, it's me. And you go, oh crap, this is not looking good here for a moment. But thankfully, the Doctor was able to make a very, very minute observation. And it's very good that the TARDIS also has movable walkways that sort of turn into like ejection slides, where he was able to get rid of the clone Donna very quickly quickly and grab the real Donna before the whole the ship went kablooey. At the end here, we have the Doctor kind of lamenting his use of the salt. I wonder whether this is going to play into the next episode, because it sort of almost seemed like it was a little bit of foreboding that he sort of had established a superstition at the edge of the galaxy.
I think this is probably another little crumb that's being introduced. We had the Meep introducing the boss last story, and I think this is the crumb of this story. He seemed to detect something that was out there beyond, but sort of stopped himself short of verbalizing that any further, which was a bit frustrating. But I think we may see some of these crumbs start to come together into the loaf in next episode.
And as the Doctor and Donna return home in the TARDIS, we get to see Wilf. Good old Wilf's there in his wheelchair. He's there waiting. And I've got to say, it was so good to see Wilf back again. I always loved the dynamic between him and that bromance between him and the Doctor. I think that was always such a sweet relationship those two had. So to kind of see him back in the end of this episode, I think was awesome.
This was Bernard Cribben's last filming before his unfortunate passing, and he was, I got to say, looking a bit fragile, in the wheelchair, and he was definitely looking not 100% the way we saw him last time. He was choked up seeing the Doctor again. That was really good to see. Donna was happy to see him. The Doctor was overjoyed to see him, and we don't get to see him expressing emotions like that so broadly sometimes. It was a really good feel-good moment. I'm really looking forward to seeing how much of a role he plays in The Giggle, the next story. I really hope they take the opportunity to see, the Wilf character off, and really do Bernard Cribben's a real honour as his last acting role.
And it definitely seems like in the time that the Doctor and Donna have been away, things haven't been quite right on Earth. We've got hysteria of some kind in the street, fighting in the streets, airplanes crashing out of the sky. It seems like we've got in the background there, it looked like we had some silver robots or something in the background there. I noticed maybe points towards the Celestial Toymaker, which we know is going to be the villain in the next episode.
It's the world gone crazy, and I guess this is where the Celestial Toymaker is probably in his realm with chaos. He kind of enjoys games. He likes chaos. He likes causing trouble, and he likes controlling and orchestrating things. Michael Gough actually played the original Celestial Toymaker back in the Hartnell era. It's going to be interesting to see Neil Patrick Harris's take on this. I think he'll add a really interesting dynamic to the next episode. It's going to be quite a showdown next week. It's going to be very interesting to see how we transition from 14 into 15.
Look, all in all, I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a good, what we would historically call a ship in the bottle episode, with the Doctor and Donna in their little kind of escape room adventure.
Yeah, look, overall I enjoyed it too. I thought it was a different pace to what we saw in the first one, where that was probably a little bit more actiony and family orientated. I think it really allowed the two characters to interact with one another very well. Yeah, there's a couple of elements there that raise some eyebrows, but I think it also left some questions that have still yet to be answered and sets things up well for the third and final story in the 60th anniversary series.
But let me know what you guys think. Maybe leave a thought in the comments section as to whether you guys liked episode 2 of the special entitled Wild Blue Yonder. Guys, if you haven't subscribed to Sci-Finatics yet, don't be shy to do so. Click on that big subscribe button to stay current and up to date with all the latest sci-fi TV news on YouTube. And be sure to check out all my merch in the merch store. Plenty of really cool sci-fi themed t-shirts and hoodies and mugs and caps and everything there to check out. Always at bargain prices and help support the channel at the same time. So really appreciate your support there. David and I will be back next week for episode 3 of the Doctor Who specials, which is entitled The Giggle. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.